for a grower is spider, aphids, mites, fungus, and mold. And when they're growing it, they say, oh, we flush it out. Well, what they flush out is all the pH up, and the ideal pH count for marijuana is 6.8, so they put acids in it, and bases in it, and they put all these other, like steroids in it. When I mean steroids, I mean like Kaboom and other fertilizers and everything else. And so then you say, oh, we flush that out. Okay, but let's talk about the spider, aphids, mites, fungus, and mold. What do? They walk into the room, open up a can of Dr. Doom, let it all go out. They leave the room 6 to 8 hours later. That insecticide killing all the bugs is sitting on what? You sweep up the bugs, and what are you smoking? So let's talk about it. So the other thing is, it's not a gateway drug. Well, there's no statistical proof that says you smoke marijuana, you will be a cocaine addict. Absolutely none. But what about schizophrenia? And if you don't believe me, what about David Suzuki? So here's something. This is 48 minutes, but I've cut it down to about 6.
We call it pot, weed, or dope. It's all marijuana. And for many people, smoking it is simply a way to unwind, not a big deal. But for others, it can be a very big deal. There's new evidence it can contribute to mental illness. And some of our teenagers are most at risk.
Listen to the way a boy
Lots of
speaks
parents
here.
and relatives of people with schizophrenia kept asking me, could this schizophrenia have anything to do with all the dope that they took? And at first I used to say, well, I don't think this could be the case. But I heard so many relatives say this that gradually I became interested in the question of could it be true?
Then Van Oz, now one of the world's leading epidemiologists in the area of schizophrenia and marijuana use, took all the findings of all the studies, discarded any doubtful statistics, and dealt with only the most conclusive evidence. His result was more conservative, but definitive.
We found that cannabis actually nearly doubles the risk of developing future psychotic states, be it isolated psychotic symptoms or clinical psychotic disorder like schizophrenia.
And if kids begin smoking pot before the age of 16, they're particularly vulnerable. The studies show their chances of developing schizophrenia don't just double, they could actually quadruple. THC, the hallucinogen in marijuana, triggers an increase in dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is a brain chemical that controls mood, and an increase in dopamine makes us more aware. That heightened awareness can lead to the hallucinations associated with schizophrenia.
We developed a test where we have people listen to white noise. And even though there are not any voices, it's just white noise, some people will report that they hear a voice in the noise. Psychosis really is about a tendency to attribute too much meaning to neutral and mundane events. That in circumstances of stress, the things that are normally mundane and neutral all of a sudden can take on a special significance. So they have a tendency to make up meaning where there isn't any.
Marijuana can trigger psychosis, and without treatment, the psychosis can trigger more marijuana use to calm the symptoms. Eventually, the developing schizophrenic is dependent on the drug. When marijuana hit the drug scene back in the 60s as a soft drug, it was a soft drug. It had less THC, but it also contained more a chemical known to buffer psychotic effects, an ingredient that's been essentially bred out of today's high-octane pot. That ingredient, called cannabidiol, was first discovered in the 1930s. It's suspected that cannabidiol, or CBD, plays a buffering role in marijuana, reducing the psychotic tendencies of THC. But most of the pot smoked today has little, if any, cannabidiol. In creating strains of marijuana with more THC, growers have been breeding out the CBD, leaving teens even more at risk.
If you take old-fashioned marijuana, resin or grass, then you tend to have a balance in the amount of THC and CBD, maybe about 4% of each. But the plant can't do both things, so it can't produce lots of THC and lots of CBD at the same time. So as you produce more THC, you produce less CBD.
So just how much THC are Canadian pot smokers inhaling? Health Canada tests the strength of pot confiscated from illegal grow-ops and reports back to the RCMP.
The THC levels that we see today are much greater than the 60s and the 70s, where people say, well, you know what, it took the edge off and helped me get through university or whatever the case may be. That was THC levels of 1 to 3%. And we know today that what's coming out of our labs is THC anywhere from 18 to 23 to 25%. And that is significant.
You're not dealing with the sort of more innocent hippies 60s drug. Now we have a very different substance.
Today's marijuana is so potent, the United Nations has discussed classifying it as a different drug from the 1960s product. So today's pot is delivering a double whammy: more psychosis-producing THC and less protective CBD. A teen's brain is a little like her messy bedroom. It's a jumble of circuits, and it needs to go through a kind of streamlining to work more effectively, a process called neural pruning. Scientists theorize any substance that interferes with that untangling of the brain can produce long-lasting, potentially devastating psychological effects.
I would smoke about 3 joints a day, and you can sort of, when you're doing it that much, you don't notice that you're losing your memory, but it's only when you stop doing it that your brain starts to get scrambled. If you smoke pot, you're going to end up losing the important ways that people need to drive and live. Most people perceive with their mind when they should be seeing with their eyes. If you smoke pot, you're sort of dooming yourself to be stuck in the corner.
I'm going to get a little sidetracked here, but why do insurance companies not want to insure anybody under the age of 25? Risk. Who said that? Why risk? Why? But because I don't have time to get into it, the brain continues to develop until the age of about 24, 25. And it develops from the back all the way to the front. And the last thing to develop is the prefrontal cortex, which is your reasoning and judgment center. And as a teenager, it's your amygdala, which is duking it out with the prefrontal cortex. And at this time, the emotional center is winning out over the reasoning and judgment. So that's why teenagers are emotional. When you ask them, don't you think before you do anything? No, not really, they don't. I mean, that's a short version, right? But anyways, let's talk. So, up to the age of 24, 25, now when we use this analogy, when you look at most crime between 17 to 25 years old, when does a light bulb come up with gangs and drugs and criminal activity and stuff like that? Isn't that all in that range there? Because it's more emotionally driven than reasoning and judgment. And when we looked at also drug usage and where it starts to taper off is when that light bulb starts to go off, and they realize there's more to life. But here is when we start playing, when you say the earlier you start experimentation, any sort of experimentation of drugs, alcohol, whatever, the earlier you start, the greater likelihood that you will develop an addictive behavior. So So when it comes down to, I'm going to get sidetracked. So let's take a look at this analogy. And this works for the kids. If I want to bake a cake, I can't bake. I can cook you a storm, but I can't bake a cake. And the recipe says, take 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of cocoa, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of oil. Put it in the oven at 375 for 25 minutes. Play along with me. I pull it out and it becomes a lovely, tasty, fluffy cake. Right? If all of a sudden I have this other cake where I start to play around with the ingredients when it's developing, and all of a sudden I'm going to deviate from the recipe. And instead of putting 2 cups of flour, let's throw 3 cups in. And instead of 2 eggs, let's throw 1 egg in there. I like chocolate, let's throw 3 cups of chocolate in there. You know what, I don't have time to wait 35 minutes, I'm going to put it in the oven 15 minutes at 425. I pull it out, do I get a cake? Do I get a cake? I get a cake, right? Can I sell that cake? Come on. Could I? Maybe? Which one would I get more money with? Exactly, right? And they can understand this, right? They're both cakes. Which cake do you want to be? That's something they understand. When you start playing around, because if they can't relate something to their here and now, their concept of time isn't developed. So when you talk in the future, and the same thing when I was growing up was, well, drugs kill brain cells. Well, I got 10 billion or whatever, if I lose 1,000, I'm okay. But when you start talking to something that they can relate to, the light bulbs go off. Okay? So, now let's get into cocaine. You know what? I'm not going to spend so much time on cocaine. You know it's a stimulant. But I'm going to show you how they make cocaine. A lot of parents will say, oh, no, Joe. Well, listen, if they're going to go to Colombia because you can't grow coca leaves here, there's nothing I can do that'll stop them. Okay? But even heavy cocaine users said, I wish I saw this. The ratio is 250 to 1. 250 pounds of coca leaves to make 1 pound of cocaine. So, they take the coca leaves, grind it up. And they gotta use solutions to extract. So they throw cement in there, potassium carbonate. This is in Colombia. Alright? So now, caustic soda solution. Ammonia, which is a household cleaning agent. Gasoline or kerosene. You've seen them also do it in a pit, bare feet. Quicklime, red devil lye. Sulfuric acid, which is the acid in your car battery. You ever wonder why they're going?
But you're making crack.
Crack is a little different. Yeah, it's kind of, but slightly different. We'll talk about it. Other environmental conscious they're going to recycle here. Look at the filtration methods that they're using too. But it's just a little white powder, a little white rock. Canvas sheet. Look how much they're left with. Now this is cocaine base they're making. Say crack. How much they started with, how much they're left with. Is any of that good for you? Do you now know why all of a sudden, they get a rash underneath their nose, and why they always look like they have a runny nose if they're snorting it? You can see why. Now, when we look at cocaine, there's two types. There's the powder cocaine, cocaine hydrochloride, which 89% of it is a cocaine base, and 11% is a salt. Now, the powder cocaine is water soluble, and the melting temperature is at 187 degrees Celsius, so you don't smoke it because it'll burn away. You don't really ingest it because it's the least effective way. So powder cocaine, they either inject it or they snort it. But then cocaine base, they wanted to get rid of the 11% of junk that's in there, the salts. They wanted to get the more pure form. So they used to use organic solvents, the Richard Pryor method, if I want to call it that, where they used hexanes, ethers, and stuff like that. And they wanted to accelerate the evaporation process, so they'd use heat, and what would happen? Poof! They'd get fire. So they found a new way of doing it, and that's basically using water, baking soda, and a heating source. So the change came in when you use this method is that crack cocaine is not water soluble. It basically has to be, but the melting temperature goes down to about 87 degrees Celsius. So it now vaporizes, and that's the way you inhale it. So the thing is that the way to make money is either you short the weight. In other words, 1 gram on the street will actually weigh, and Fort McMurray is totally different. Usually in Edmonton it's 0.6% 0.6 to 0.8 of a gram. Here, a gram is, you're lucky you get 0.5. So it's just supply demand. But the thing is, the way to make money is I either short the weight or increase my bulk volume. And increasing the bulk volume, anything white I can throw in there. We had levamisole in there for the longest time. It was discovered because we thought people were having AIDS. And what happened, levamisole is a pig deworming agent. It decreases your white blood cells, causing neutropenia, and they thought they were getting like AIDS symptoms of it. Somehow it got onto the third world market. We're now seeing if I can break into a pharmacy and get procaine, xylocaines, any of the cane family, those are called adulterants. But what I've actually seen in there is weightlifting chalk, crushed glass, Ajax, or one of those cleansers that's not blue. I think it's Old Dutch, actually. I've seen a common one is glucose, fructose, baking sodas to increase bulk volume. Therefore, there's more to sell, right?
I have a stupid question.
No, it's no stupid question. Go ahead.
So why is the crack cocaine?
Yes.
It's more pure, cheaper.
It's supply, demand, and what they get. It depends. Usually, you know what? In the cocaine world, it's kind of, you'll have the powder cocaine people, and you'll have your crack cocaine people, and they don't really want to mix. So one of the things that when we see people carrying both, we have to prove it. But chances are, usually you'll see a separation in the culture. Why is it different? Just what they can get their hands on, what's easier or cheaper to get, the supply and demand. Sorry?
What they're cutting it with.
No, crack cocaine, you don't really, yes, you can, but
So we deal with this
yes,
with the drugstore
Yes.
a lot. We have doctors, lawyers, dentists,
That's
whatever, using cocaine because they can afford it, it's the real thing. To them, it's the real
cocaine
thing.
powder?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we got sex workers on the street, we have homeless population, yada, 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 who are cutting, for example, 3 grains of cocaine with drywall dust, with or tranquilizers, to make the quantity seem bigger, but all you're smoking is crap. You're not really
Oh,
smoking.
crap. I think you keep talking crap.
No crap. But you're,
Yeah.
so it's,
Okay, yes and no. There's something called garbage crack, okay? And what they do is take water, they take baking soda, cocaine powder, they mix it all together, and you can throw all kinds of junk in there because of the water, it solidifies, right? So that is one way, but one of the differences you can tell is one is all crumbly, where the true crack cocaine is hard as a rock. Okay, now the powder cocaine is not pure. It's 89% pure cocaine, and when they transform it to crack cocaine, ideally, other than the garbage crack, they're actually getting rid of those 11% impurities. And because it can be now smoked, it is, your highs are 5 to 20 minutes. That's the rush and so on, for the crack cocaine, as opposed to the powder cocaine, which is roughly half an hour to an hour.
Absolutely, and what we see on the street here is crack, they call it.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that what they're doing is they're now taking other substance, compressing it, and selling it as crack.
Yes.
Okay, but there's a difference. True crack is
I understand
okay.
that, but what I'm saying is what we're seeing here, you're not.
You're getting the adulterants that they're throwing in there and anything else, and they're compressing it.
Or, yeah.
And that's because cocaine powder, there is a perception that it's less addictive because psychologically, crack cocaine is working.
Oh, absolutely. But
And
it's
that's where
cheaper.
we may have that professional separation. And, but,
It's cheaper.
yeah. So usually what happens is meth came on and it really caused the prices to crash because of the competition. Now the prices have gone up, but it's all, the things, as an expert, what we talk about, the things that control pricing are the following. Location, supply, demand, quantity, familiarity with client, and bulk volume that you can get or whatever you throw in there. So those are all the things, and depending on the local situation, those vary. The other thing I said, crack cocaine is not water soluble. Well, they use citric acid, vinegar, and urine as well to make it water soluble. So, if you have powder cocaine, how are you going to transport it and hide it from police? So they came up with something called spitballs. And basically, they take a sandwich bag, tilt it on the end, drop it in a corner, twist it off, rip it off. And so if you see in the garbage sandwich bags with corners cut off, they're packaging. And if you see little circular things with a knot, that's a spitball. So they hold it in their mouth. And a perfect example is, so they always have, usually you have a driver, if they're doing it this way, with the cash, and the passenger has the drugs with a chug jug. So the police come along, they swallow it, police leave, they regurgitate it. So what do the police do? Run up and give a person a tiger claw on the throat. And it's not just because we're preventing them. No, I won't. But it's not because we don't like that misguided individual. It's because we're preventing them from swallowing. And it used to be the case where, I have to be a little careful here. It used to be the case where they would come up and say, "Copper, what are you going to do now?" Well, first we used to try and talk to them, get them, medical treatment to say, you throw it up because if it ruptures inside you, blah, 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 blah. Well, we have gone to the courts and said, Your Honor, for the preservation of evidence, I'd like to remand them for 3 days. And we've gotten smart. It's always a little bit of a cat and mouse game. So put them in a cell with no water, and I've actually seen them eat it again. So it depends on how creative people are to deal with these things. Different types of crack pipes, or it can be for tobacco, or marijuana too. They can be very creative. Now, you've got hot gases, so look for burn marks on the lips, burn marks on the fingers. They can put alcohol or liquids there to cool down the heat. That's, how much does that cost to make? So, some of the packaging, this is your crack cocaine at the 1 gram, at the half gram, and lottery ballots. How many, if you see 3, 4, 5 of them floating around in a car in a bedroom, start asking questions. Because what's important, is it the printout from the computer or is it those ballot sheets? Where can I get those? Anywhere? What time of day? Anytime? How much it costs? Nothing. They use them to bake the old-time pharmaceutical mix, flaps, and fold. So we took this from a dial and over, you had both. So we don't see the Playtex baby bottle liners anymore, or very rarely. So the girly magazines or the high-gloss magazines are more resistant to the harsh chemicals. And, the spoons for converting it to crack or to injecting. Here's just a little clip, things to look for.
When we're talking about substances, usually drugs are categorized in 3 different categories: uppers, downers, and all arounders. Some drugs make your body move faster, some drugs make your body move slower, and some make you see. They will choose drugs depending on what kind of high they like. So when we're talking about drugs, we're talking about different words like they're going to go blaze, they're going for a session, sometimes people say like for a walk. So you take your pot that's in that plastic baggie, and you crush it up and you roll it into a roller paper and you smoke it. This is how usually people will smoke pot. Other ways you can take it, this is a pipe, a long sword. So you take your flavored warm water, which you can get in stores. So you get warm water or you can get some liquor. You fill it about halfway there, you put your pot on the top or your half on the top, and you light it up and you smoke it at the center. They put the water in there so it cools it down so you don't burn your mouth and you don't burn your lungs when you're inhaling. So say you can't afford the $25, $30 bomb. So you gotta make one yourself. So you take a pop can, you crush the top, you put holes on the top, you put your pot on the top, you light it, and you smoke it up the center. If you can't find a pop can, you take a Dasani water bottle.
Tire pressure gauges, the $5 cheap ones, the metal from Canadian Tire, crack pipes, with Brillo.
You fill it with warm water, or you fill it with regular water, or you put some liquor in there. Again, to cool it, you put your pot on top, you light it, and you smoke it up the center. You make your own. Students are very, very creative when it comes to drugs. They can pretty much make anything.
You don't see this much at all now.
The most creative ways. Here's another one. Third one. So it's a 2-liter pop bottle, cut off with a plastic baggie, taped on the bottom. So you take your tin foil or you take some Brillo pad, like that SOS pad, you stick it on top, you press the holes in it, you put your pot on top of it, and you light it up, and you suck the air back. Suck it back. Then you take the foil off, you put the lid on it, and you've got pot to go. So now you can take it with you. There's a pot in the bag, the needles are in the bag, so you just take it. This one lasts apparently for 2 days. I don't know. I think it might get a little stale. You just pass it around.
Brillo is different than steel wool, that SOS pad, that horrible taste of the SOS.
My mom finally figured out what these were. She had them everywhere around her house. She didn't know what they were. Because they look kind of like, kids making fun things, right? That's what they kind of look like. But she realized what it was for. These are rollies. You take your pot, you put it in here, you roll it, and that's how you make your joint. These are rolling papers. There's different kinds, there's different flavors. This one's a watermelon kind. 420, April 20th is International Pot Smoking Day. So every year on April 20th, it's like the day that everybody thinks you can actually go and smoke pot. Everyone takes the SkyTrain down, and they hang out in the art gallery downtown, and they will basically smoke weed. They think it's okay. And to cut your pot up with, you use your scissors. So usually they're like this. They open up like that, and you hit your pot. How many of you guys have these in your kitchen? To cut up spices and stuff? Bud buster. You put your pot in there, and you crunch it up, and then you can roll it easier. Does this look like a cigarette, right? It's actually a pipe. So you put your pot on the end. So if you're, let's say you're at school, you're in the smoke pit during school, and you want to smoke some pot maybe, you put your pot on the end of it, and you light it up, you smoke it up this end, but it looks like a cigarette from far away. So if you want to hide it, disguise it, you can do that too. Little flashlights you get from the dollar store, flashlights. This one's actually
San Francisco.
You take it apart.
I'm at the store, San
Take that off. So
Francisco.
your pot on the top, again you light it, and you smoke it up the end.
Any head shop, you can buy any of these.
This is a good one. So what is this? A highlighter. Every student has a highlighter, right? You need it for school, highlight things. You know it actually works and writes like a highlighter. When you pull the back out, it's a chippy like that. So you know that hash, that brown stuff that's going around? Looks like the brownie. Comes off the plant too, highlights the THC. What people often do is they turn their stove or their elevators on, and you take the hash and they put it on the end of the thing. And they light it, and they suck up and use pot making. Again, I did a parent night and I had a mom come up to me and she's like, yes, well, my knives are always burnt because her son was hot night. You guys seen something like this before? You guys buy the grocery?
You get in cans. Most cans you can squish. It's solid like a rock. So
Stash
it's
machine
screwing
with
it.
drugs inside. There's a Pringles one, so you know, Pringles and chip, there's one like that too, and you take a bread in the middle and you stash it everywhere. So you find it in your kid's room or someone's room, it just looks like it's a pop bottle, but when you open it up, it's amazing what's in them.
It used to be the case we could
But kids use
spot
drugs
them.
in different ways.
Everything in Canada had to be bilingual, so we saw a container that was unilingual. Used to be a dead giveaway, but now it's bilingual.
Some will inject, some will ingest. It just depends on what kind of high you're looking for and what kind of drug it is.
So very quickly, let's move on to meth. Meth, you know, actually most drug use is going down. The TASE report 2008 has shown a decreasing trend, with one exception. The Ontario Student Drug Use Survey has shown a decrease in the amount of drug usage. So the perception that everybody is doing it is not true. The other thing is the one drug that is showing a stark increase, an alarming increase, is prescription drugs. And we need to be aware of that as well. But most other drugs are starting to go down a little bit. But that's a meth lab. That's a meth lab. Chemicals used. It can be snorted. It can be smoked. It can be injected, and it's a very, very, very addictive substance. It's a very strong stimulant, and most drug users are male as opposed to female. Methamphetamine, the ratio is about 50-50. And one of the methods that was marketed was to young teenagers as a weight loss program. If you look at the ones for ephedrins and all, a lot of the weight loss chemicals that they add, ephedrins and ephedras were part of that. So that's what they try and extract out of it. One of the things that when you smoke meth, it's the hot gases. It decreases oxygen supply to the teeth. These are extreme cases, but what it does is you have hot gases. They're not being filtered. You get it on, you know, you burn your fingers, burn your lips, burn your mouth, and so what happens to the enamel? The metabolism of methamphetamine affects your calcium levels in your teeth, and you're not brushing all the time. Plus you kill oxygen supply to your teeth. So all those factors they create for bad teeth, and that's a common feature. Burn marks and bad teeth. The other thing is with methamphetamine, your body can only get rid of 60 to 70% of the methamphetamine that it takes in. Your body has to find other ways to get the other 30% out of your body. And so one of the most popular ways is to pee it out. And in the U.S. and California, we haven't seized any here. They have urine labs where they take it and they mix their tang in it and they drink it, or they cook it up in the crystals. Yes, you do get some meth from your eyes, and yes, they'll eat their own scabs. They will not sell their own scabs, and the reason, you know, who's going to eat somebody else's scab for the amount of anything that's in there? That's not true. So one of the things that it does as well is that when meth is broken down into your body, it releases some histamines. And if anybody has an allergy, they take an antihistamine. And what histamines do is give you that creepy, crawly, bug, scratchy, fidgety type of sensation. So they're always the stimulant, plus they're always scratching. So somebody on meth, you'll start seeing them always shaking something, you know. So, and if you also have obsessive compulsive behavior, you'll start picking away at things, and these are extreme cases, and they get infected. So this is more of a common feature where there's scratch marks or like acne on it. So, and you'll start seeing them becoming very thin and bags under their eyes and very agitated. So the other thing is if you're up for 4 or 5 days, what's the withdrawal? You're going to sleep for 3 days. I can drop a bomb beside you. You're not going to get up. So this is the most common pipe that they use. When you get it in grains or points, the decimal system, if I was going to write 1/10 of a gram in the decimal system, how would I write it? 0.1. So that's what a point is. A grain is about 1/50 concave surface, because if I drop it in here, where do I know where to light up from? So if I put it down here, I know it's going to be down on the bottom, and they'll inhale the vapors that way. Light bulbs, what they would do is when it first hit the market, we used to have hotels complaining light bulbs were stolen. They'd either crack a hole here, drop it down, or they'd light it here, or they'd pour out the filament, put some tape on, inhale it, down here light it up, or they take the shard, the glass, and they would hold it, and they take aluminum foil too with a straw and chase the smoke. Those are different ways, snorting it, injecting it. So the things to look for, and this is just a kind of a whimsical sort of clip, but it reinforces some of the science to look for.
Hey kids, if you're using meth, then you already know it's the fashionable drug for adolescents. But if you're gonna suck that poison down, you gotta dress the part, right? So let's head over to the runway and see what the tweakers are wearing this season. This stunning shirt highlights her pasty skin and covers those festering sores. Look, they're not even oozing through the fabric. And because you'll shed the pounds while your body's wasting away to jack, you're gonna need this nifty black belt. See how it accents the death rings under her eyes? Very attractive. She's making that sign of starvation work. Who knows, girl? You tear it out. And these cotton PJs are perfect for the times when you're gonna be up all night shaking your junky butt off, man. Yeah, they really soak up the sweat, huh? Well, that's the show, Meth Music. Thanks for coming. Hey, even if you can't cover up Meth's effects with our trendy clothing, don't worry about it. The sheet in the coroner's office will take care of that just nice.
Meth is one of the more difficult drugs to come clean off of, and they have those real struggle coming clean off. I want to touch on ecstasy, and there's a lot of discussion points that we can have on this, but I'm going to try and keep it simple. What mark is that? CK. Calvin Klein, right? This symbol here, if you can see it. Sorry? No, Mercedes, or the older generation will say Peace. The Nike, and TP is toilet paper. It's totally pure, man. So what it is ecstasy is a central nervous system stimulant and hallucinogenic. It affects your chemical in your body called serotonin. And serotonin is your chemical in your body that is your kind of your relationship type of drug. It's like, oh, why can't we be friends? You're my best friend. Oh, can we hug? You know, oh, this is so smooth. That's sort of what serotonin does. Now, what it does is it affects the uptake of serotonin and causes serotonin dump as well. And I'll use a little analogy that why you have problems is it's a stimulant which increases body temperature, heart rate, and all those other things that go along with stimulant, as well as hallucinogenic. So what they end up doing is, I use this analogy of a tube of toothpaste, where they open the tube of toothpaste and you take an ecstasy, and it's like hitting that tube of toothpaste with a fist. So you get that squirt, the dump, and you inhibit the uptake of the serotonin as well, or slow it down. So now what they try and say, there's a little bit of toothpaste left, so take another pill and stack it and try and get more of that serotonin out. But what you're doing is you get less and less of effect, but a lot more increase in the harmful effects with body temperature, blood pressure, and so on, which causes brain. A lot of times they die because they have such high fevers, and also because of the swelling causes a pinching of the brainstem as well. So that's how a lot of the death occurs. So what do they do? Remember, as a drug dealer, you, if I can get my hands onto something, I will throw that in there. These were ecstasy pills, seized 2006, 2007. And all this is marketing to the kids. Different colors, different shapes. Try the blue one, try the green one. But let's take a look at what's in here. Ecstasy is 3,4-methylene-dioxymethamphetamine. So RB, here's ecstasy methamphetamine, ecstasy ketamine procaine, ecstasy ketamine trimethylfluoral piperazine, ecstasy, caffeine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, methamphetamine, ketamine. This is 2CT2, I don't know what that is. Ecstasy, Benadryl, ecstasy, dextromethorphan. You have no idea what you're getting. So now, because of India, China, and the Asian markets, they actually can get easier access to certain chemicals. So, the Decepticon, the Bart Simpson, what, you know, how can Bart Simpson kill you? Or the Decepticon? That's all marketing. So, do you know which one is the 6 milligram tablet of ecstasy, or which one is the 113 milligram? So now when you're stacking it, are you getting 12 or are you getting 226? So these are the things to look at. So the Decepticon is benzylpeprazine, trimethylfluoroperazine, and caffeine, BZP, TMFBP, dextromethorphan, caffeine. Here's your 6 milligram tablet, here's your 112, here's your 113 with methamphetamine, protein, caffeine. You're playing Russian roulette with this stuff. But it's like a vitamin, man. It's a little pill. How can Bart Simpson and Decepticon vitamin kill you? It's all marketing. And the simple message is, farther the departure of drug is anything that you put into your body other than food that changes the way your mind functions and the way your body functions. And the greater departure you take yourself from reality, the greater you put yourself at risk. And so when we get into the fact that is true ecstasy addictive or not addictive? Well, what do you know when you're getting? Is methamphetamine addictive? Ketamine addictive? Procaines? All those other stuff? So that argument is mute. One of the things that drives me batty is there's a bad batch of ecstasy on the street. Is there a good batch? It drives me nuts when I hear that. So, if you don't believe me, let's listen to Oprah.
Have you heard about the drug ecstasy? Okay. You know, kids think it's fun, and kids think it's not dangerous, but we're here to tell you today that it really, really is. This is a very important show for parents and for their children. There is a drug that's really running rampant through schools and parties that you need to know about if you don't. The drug, it's a little teeny tiny pill called ecstasy. What is ecstasy? Watch this. It has been called the LSD of the 21st century. Use of MDMA, better known as ecstasy, has exploded over the last few years, becoming the drug of choice for a growing number of middle-class teenagers who think that it offers a harmless high. This is what you need to know about ecstasy. It is a synthetic drug that is part amphetamine and part psychedelic. It floods the brain with serotonin, a chemical that affects the body's moods, creating a euphoric high, which lasts from 6
Why do they have laser light shows? Why do they have beats at 110 beats a minute? Why do they cut their body to fix labor up?
Of the experience of pain, sleep, to disrupt your normal serotonin function. You're disrupting many aspects of an individual's core life function. Their personality, their ability to do well in school. This is a serious change in brain function.
The drug has been illegal since 1985, but kids can buy it as easily as a piece of candy. It is particularly popular at all-night parties called raves, but this is not child's